welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be reading Spooky, Creepy Long Island. We're going to be reading Chapter 3, Lake Ronkonkoma and the Legend of the Lady of the Lake. But before we begin, I'd like to formally apologize. I have been having computer issues and technical difficulties, but hopefully they are fixed. And yeah, without further ado, my dear friends, I hope that you are all having a wonderful morning, noon, or afternoon, evening, whenever this video gets you. So let's grab a snack, grab a drink, or just sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Chapter 3, Lake Ronkonkoma and the Legend of the Lady of the Lake. It's no surprise that American Indians, or Native Americans, hold such a firm place in our folklore. The gradual spread of European colonists across North America and their encounters and exchanges with its original residents was a foundation of American society. This expansion was accompanied by communing with the Native Americans, and many places in America still retain names which echo the language of the people who lived in America for centuries before the first European colonists set up their first tenuous settlements. The culture and customs of the Native Americans seemed alien to the European colonists, differing in many ways, including religion and burial practices. This contrast of cultures has been fertile ground for stories both genuine and otherwise. The Native Americans were far from a uniform culture. Social customs differed between the tribes, including lifestyles, languages, and funerary practices. Some tribes buried their dead in mounds, while other tribes buried their dead under funeral cairns, which are a mound of stones used to designate the final resting place of the deceased. Much has been made of the culture clash between the Native Americans and the European settlers. In particular, many uniquely American works of fiction and film have centered on the violation of sacred Indian burial grounds. It has long been established in our folklore that any building built on or near an Indian burial ground is likely to inspire, at the very least, the displeasure of the spirits of the dead, and misfortune of the supernatural variety is likely to fall upon the residents or visitors of these places. The legends. Lake Ronkonkoma is perhaps unique, since it is not the site of an Indian burial ground, but instead a rich variety of legends have grown surrounding this pastoral location. Lake Ronkonkoma is the largest lake on Long Island. The lake is situated entirely in the town of Islip. The land surrounding the lake is in the jurisdiction of 3 different townships: Islip, Brookhaven, and Smithtown. As a result of the lake's existence, Lake Ronkonkoma was once a resort town until the area experienced a population explosion in the mid-1900s. Remnants of old resorts and hotels can still be seen around the lake's shores. It is still a popular destination for Long Island residents. offering a variety of recreational activities to the public, including fishing, baseball fields, picnic areas, and opportunities to canoe on or swim in the lake. It seems that the enduring folklore and urban legends have not been able to frighten Long Islanders away forever. The most well-known legend about the lake has retained its popularity to this day, although the particulars of the legend have changed over the history of its retelling, a common occurrence in folklore and urban legends. To the depths with love. One version of the legend tells of a Setauket Sachem Indian who was not permitted to wed his beloved, a member of a different tribe. According to the legend, the young Indian brave, in a fit of love sickness, paddled his canoe out to the middle of the lake and unalived himself by using a knife. Another version of the legend surrounds a young, beautiful Indian princess who was in love with a white man, but forbidden to marry her European American lover. Consumed by despair, she canoed out to the middle of the lake and unalived herself. The princess's body washed to shore in the canoe and was discovered by her lover, who climbed into the canoe and was swept away, never to be seen again by any living soul. Yet another variation on the theme of star-crossed lovers. Lakes, canoes, and divine intervention claims that before the white man arrived, there was a tribe of Secotog Indians living in what is now Sayville. In this tribe, there was a princess who was in love with an Indian prince from Puspatak tribe and the other side of Brown's River. Of course, the young noble Indians were forbidden to pursue their affair. One day they stole away to Lake Ronkonkoma and took a canoe to a romantic spot after nightfall to make love. The Indian spirits did not approve of this. The gods felt that people on opposite sides of the river, and consequently from different tribes, should not mix. And the gods saw their miscegnation as a crime requiring divine intervention. Their canoes sunk and their bodies fell forever and ever down into the bottomless lake. An even further variation on this variation on a theme suggests that the two lovers were to meet in the center of the lake and elope one night. But when the Indian girl rowed out to the middle of the lake that night, no one was there to meet her. Heartbroken and careless, she let herself drift and passed away on the lake. And, true to the notorious changeability of urban legends, another variation on the variation of the legend is called the troubled spirit of the lake. And this tells the story of an Indian maiden who was convinced to sacrifice herself to appease the god Manutul. The determined maiden tied weights around her ankles, rowed to the middle of the lake, and slipped over the side. The maiden's lover, determined to follow her wherever she went, dove into the lake after her. And their bodies supposedly turned up in the Connecticut River weeks later. In the longest retelling of the legend of the Lady of the Lake, in the middle part of the 17th century, an Indian princess fell deeply in love with a young man of her tribe. She eagerly awaited her upcoming wedding day as she worked on the clothing she would wear, all the while dreaming of their life together. Of course, fate would not allow these star-crossed lovers to be together. 1 week before they were wed, her groom was murdered by a white settler from the nearby town of Ronkonkoma. The princess was inconsolable. She felt she could not stand to live without her love, especially since the man who killed her lover would never pay for his crime. Her family tried to help her, but they did not know what to do. They tried to speak to her, begging her to calm down, but their pleading only made her tears come faster. They left her alone by the fire, frightened by the depth of her grief. On the night before what should have been the happiest day of her life, the princess rose and dressed in the gown she had made for her wedding and walked silently to the shore of the lake. She looked into the lake and was so heartbroken that she thought she saw her groom dancing just below the water's surface. The ghostly spirit seemed to call out to the princess using her childhood name. When she heard the name whispered by that voice, she called back to him 3 times and swore that they would be together forever, and that, united in the spirit world, they would get the justice they deserved. The princess then determinedly rowed herself out to the center of the lake, tied rocks to her ankles, and threw herself into the lake. The unaliving of the princess shocked and saddened her family and their neighbors, but despite their efforts, they could not recover her body from the lake. Some say her body now rests beneath a Connecticut river, since the lake was bottomless and had a connection through the Long Island Sound. The legend also says the lake has a strange depression near the northeastern shore, and weird lights and sounds are experienced as evidence that the princess is still grieving her murdered bridegroom. Others say that while her tormented soul was dying, the princess vowed to avenge the tragic death of her lover, and once every year she appears on the shore, ethereal and lovely, still dressed for her wedding day. It is said on that day she chooses a man to accompany her to the never-ending bottom of the lake to replace her lost love. According to this legend, every year at least one man drowns in Lake Ronkonkoma, and they are never seen again. In a last modern twist on the tale, every year a pair of lovers die in an automobile accident in the area, victim of the jealousy of the Lady of the Lake. The longest story, as told above, reveals 2 of the other interesting legends surrounding Lake Ronkonkoma. One of these legends is that the lake is supposedly supposed to be bottomless and rises and lowers mysteriously without any noticeable relationship to local rainfall totals. It is even rumored to have secret underwater passages that stem for miles, ending in neighborhood bodies of water such as the Long Island Sound or rivers in neighboring Connecticut. These legends are just that, only legends. The truth is that it is not bottomless. The lake has been reported as being between 65 and 70 feet deep at its deepest points. The lake is an example of a kettle hole lake, formed by an isolated piece of ice which broke away from a glacier after it melted, leaving a depression behind. Lake Ronkonkoma is the largest kettle-hole lake formed on Long Island by the last glacier, which left the region about 20,000 years ago. Another legend of the lake is that there has been a drowning every year due to the curse placed upon it. The vengeful spirit of the Lady of the Lake drags men to the bottomless bottom of the lake, and the drowning victims return to haunt the lake and its surrounding area. It is also rumored, instead, that every year the Lady of the Lake drowns young couples, pulling their souls to the bottom of the lake, or that every year the lake sacrifices someone to their arcane gods. The Lady of the Lake calls young men out to the middle of the lake and drowns them. It seems that in almost every version, the lady is an Indian princess who unalived herself in the lake. Unfortunately, drownings do occasionally occur, where there are recreational areas that offer swimming, but someone dying every year at a swimming spot would certainly be noticed by the local Chamber of Commerce, and lifeguards would surely be assigned. There is a seed of truth at the root of this legend. People do drown. Like Onyx, Ariel, Umanzor, one of a group of boys who was playing in the lake trying to race each other to a buoy. He fell, perhaps, and disappeared, and was later discovered drowned. Perhaps he was just the victim of an innocent youthful carelessness, but perhaps instead the Lady of the Lake continues to exact her revenge on the residents of Ronkonkoma. From some rationale for lovers. Regarding the possibility of that Indian princess and her star-crossed lover were from different tribes living on opposite sides of the lake, there is historical evidence which helps to explain and discredit these legends. Lake Ronkonkoma was considered a most sacred place by the Indian tribes of Long Island, and was also the meeting point of the tribes that inhabited Long Island. 4 of the 13 tribes living on Long Island shared its shoreline as a common fishing station and meeting place, controlling different parts of it. These Indian tribes were known as the Nessequagios, Setaukets, Secatogs, and Unachogs. These 4 tribes shared the privilege of using the river as a gathering place, but the tribes of the area did not live in the area immediately surrounding the lake, instead preferring to live near the coast of what is now known as Long Island. This historical evidence makes it seem unlikely that the Lady of the Lake and her lover fled from their respective settlements to meet in the middle of the lake. But as much time may pass and the names of places may change, people stay the same. Young lovers will elope because their families do not approve of their union, and who can truly say that in the days before the white man arrived and swept across the land, that a young Indian couple did not secretly slink away from their tribes under cover of darkness during the meeting of the tribes at their sacred lake? Neither you nor I, my friend, and This is why the legend of the Lady of the Lake will continue to live on long after you and I have gone gently into the night. And that is the end of chapter 3. My dear, dear friends, tune in next time for chapter 4, The Haunted Lighthouses of Long Island. This has been Ruby, signing off.